Hi, welcome back to Heart of Gold. I am Paul Chartier, a good friend of ours, Malcolm Ratchford. Welcome back.
Going? Thank you for having me again.
Happy New Year.
Same to you. Same to you.
Community Action Council is not your grandmother's or grandfather's Community Action Council. You've been there about 4 years?
Almost 4 years now in this position.
You worked your way up?
Yes.
And congratulations.
Thank you. Started there in 1996.
Oh my gosh.
It's been a long time.
Take us through when it started, what you saw, what Community Action Council's focus was,
Okay.
and where you are right now.
As I said, Paul, I started in 1996, but our Community Action Agency celebrated 50 years just a couple of years ago, and we started actually in 1965, and we were created based on the war on poverty by Lyndon Baines Johnson, and so that look was to go out and make sure we could eradicate poverty and make sure we eliminate it. So our organization locally has been around since 65, and I've been there 20 of those years. Started in 1996 as a family service worker, a family advocate, and knew what I wanted to do the entire time, which is to be the executive director. My predecessor, Jack Birch, laid a tremendous foundation for
great
me,
guy.
and great mentor to me. And I remember asking one day, I said, what would it take to do this job? And he was like, you don't want this job. And I was like, yeah, I really do want this job, just because of the opportunity to help people get out of poverty and bring your vision into play was something I always wanted to do. I grew up in poverty, so I wanted to share some of my lessons that I've learned over time and just be able to put that into an organization plan and mission.
Jack built a great foundation.
Yes.
He put you guys on the map.
Yes.
In the 4 years that you've taken over, what are some of the new things? Because again, you've branched
Right.
off from just utilities,
Right.
which was your focus. What things now are you making an impact on?
One of the biggest things that I think we have to do, and as I said before, my heart is near and dear to community action, been in it 20 years, but in our 50 going forward, I think it's important that we understand the difference between providing just emergency services. We want to make sure people don't freeze to death, make sure people have food at home, and make sure they have shelter. But you need to stay there temporarily and move through the continuum, if you were to say, and think about the long-term self-sufficiency programs. That's why I brought you this book today called Toxic Charity by Robert Lupton, because we don't want to create that dependency. We want to make sure we get families on a pathway out. And so just trying to create more programs that are driven that way, that we see an outcome, that a person actually get out of poverty. Not so much as how many did you serve, but how many of those you served actually get out of poverty. It's the key question.
You cannot do it by yourself.
No.
This is a great community. It's a very collaborative community. You've probably built allies to work together. You mentioned Herb Miller before.
Yes.
Who are some of the other groups that you're working with to develop the plan to get people off of poverty?
You know, one of the key things, Paul, is realizing that there's folks in the private sector, the business community, often forgotten when it comes to solving social ills. Then you have the public sector, elected officials. We have our school districts, faith-based as well. And you have to collaborate with all those individuals, and we actually do. We have several collaborations with our local school district here, a lot of faith-based collaborations. Energy providers, as you mentioned, Columbia Gas, KU have been tremendous partners with us, doing different activities throughout the year. But trying to get those folks all to work together for the common good of Lexington. And we're in other counties as well, Harrison, Bourbon, and Nicholas. But as far as those partners in Lexington right here, that's critical. We can't move the needle in regards to getting folks out of poverty without those entities. Can't do it without them.
We'll talk about emergency services in a minute.
Okay.
So what's your vision, Malcolm, to get people from needing help to fishing for themselves?
The first thing, I'm glad you mentioned that, is first, people have to understand what poverty actually is. We often only think that it means that a person doesn't have money to buy goods and services. That's what everybody thinks. Because that's how the country we define poverty is. You're below a line because of your income.
There's got to be a line.
Yeah, there's a line. You don't have enough income, so you're out of you're in poverty. But what people don't realize, there's other resources that even some of us today who are not in poverty may not have, like emotional resources, meaning you just can't make good decisions. There may be spiritual, you think everything revolves around you. You don't have the physical mobility to get to work. It's lots of other things beyond just the inability to purchase goods and services. And what we're trying to do at Community Action now is teach our staff that you got to help people identify and navigate through this system of these resources, because without them, sometimes the cycle repeats itself. And it's not just people changing their behaviors and the world will be fine and everybody's out of poverty. There are structural barriers that we have to advocate for and against. And then the people, in terms of the economics around you, things we have to do differently in our community, like involve the private sector and the other community sectors to get people out of poverty. So we're trying to create a pathway that creates opportunity and have that person who is trapped in that vicious cycle, they have to be a participant as well. We can open up 1,000 community action agencies. It wouldn't make a difference if that person's not ready to navigate, and we have the connections to do so as well.
I've got to believe that, for the most part, people have the pride that they want to work and live and provide a nice living for their family.
Right.
I've got to believe that they're not happy to go to the mailbox.
Yeah, and hopelessness is something that we see a lot. You know, people lose hope when you don't have the things happen. One of the things we know that people get out of poverty for one of 4 reasons, Paul. One is they have a vision or a dream of something they want to have or become. That's one reason people get out of poverty. So they go after things. The other is there's a mentor, somebody who can sponsor them, somebody who shows them there's a different life. And sometimes, as you mentioned, the pain is just so unbearable that there has to be something better. So they think to themselves, you know, I got to do something to get out of this situation. And then lastly, that person has a talent or a gift or skill that provides an opportunity for them. That's the only way that anybody, so when people ask Malcolm, or how'd you get out of poverty? I had a vision, I wanted to become something, or I had someone who told me there was something different in life. But those are the ways, unless you're lucky enough to hit the lottery, but those are the ways people get out of poverty. So
everybody gets a free education. Little kids, and I think it stems from home, that if parents don't promote education, that kid may not have the chance, or the support system. They may get it from the teachers from the minute they walk in to when they leave, but when they go home, if the support's not there, what are you all doing to address maybe anything at all to help the educational system?
One of the unique things we do, we have a early childhood education program called Head Start. Head Start has always, in its 50 years, always believed that the family is the critical piece. You have to work with the families. Unfortunately, some kids don't have families in our support systems. We try to locate and identify those who are significant in their lives, workforce development with those folks, partnerships to help build a text-rich environment in the home. Some homes don't have books. You'll be surprised. How do we build these types of things into the home? But also, you have to have a relationship with parents. It can't be, we're going to tell you how to do everything. Right. The parent is the child's first teacher. And so we want to make sure we establish that connection with the families first. And that's what I love about Community Action, because we are a comprehensive organization, meaning we attack every way that keeps the person in poverty. And that's from the child, the parents, whoever's in that child's life. And if they're not, we try to figure out who that significant person is.
I love your vision. I love the plan. I know you're a go-getter. So do you think this is going to take 6 months or a year?
One thing about poverty is I tell people it's not going to be an overnight fix. And people say, well, can you even eliminate poverty? And that's a great question. I think one of the things you have to look at, though, is at what cost can you afford not to begin to address these issues? As we see violence in our communities, crime, we see all types of things going on right now, folks that are homeless. All these things go back to an underlying root cause. And typically, you'll see that poverty is there. And so the question is, can you afford not to think about trying to eliminate any level of poverty? And whether it's around 10 years from now, 5 years from now, it takes time to build those relationships and have those type of strategies.
Well, Malcolm, as a young guy, I really applaud you for your vision and energy, and enough to know that community action is not going to solve all the problems.
Right.
You've got to have a team, and you don't have walls up. You want people to help each other out.
Exactly.
And I really applaud you for that.
Well, thanks for having me on the show to be able to talk about community action.
We're not done.
Okay, well,
we're not
great.
done.
That's
we're
great.
not done.
That's great.
We've talked about your vision. We want to give your website.
Okay.
Because if anybody wants to make a donation, if they want to give time, if they're a company that wants to jump on board of what your effort is, where can they go to look you up?
Our website is www.commaction.org, and we ask that you do go to our website because it's a new website. Speaking of our vision, we want to let people see exactly what does it mean to create a pathway out of poverty. And as soon as you log on, you'll see a video. Open that up and check it out, and I guarantee you in 2 minutes you'll see the difference in terms of what we're talking about now versus what we talked about in the past as it relates to creating pathways out of poverty.
We've got time, but I want to finish up in talking about the things specifically that you do to provide utilities and services.
Okay.
But you've got a great team with you too.
Yes.
You've got great employees. People have to have it in their heart to want to work for a nonprofit that makes a difference.
Yeah, one trait you have to have is the empathy. You know, and that's one of the things we've been talking about as we create our values, which is a new thing for us too. What are the values that Community Action Council looks for in the folks that we hire? And that's new conversations for us, because what we found is not everybody likes to help, you know, and not everybody likes to help.
Yeah.
And that's something, the truth of the matter. But what we need are people who are empathetic, people who can understand that sometimes they may too be going through the exact same thing, circumstances, but now you're a servant leader, and you're helping now. And you're with Community Action Council now, so you're right. You have to have empathy. That's probably the most critical trait for anybody who walks in our door as an employee, is to have that.
You know, like yourself, you went through a tough childhood. A lot of people have. And then to go work for a nonprofit instead of a Toyota or a Lexmark or Tempur Sealy, where you can be an executive. I mean, you're giving something up, but look what they're getting back and giving at the same time.
Yeah, it's always rewarding. Like I said, I love my job. I tell people, if I actually were to win the lottery, I'd probably still come to Community Action Council, because I love doing this work. And it's just fun to each day to come up with new, innovative ideas that will hopefully get people out of poverty.
In the last couple minutes, so when people call the phone number, why do they call you, and what can you do for them on the telephone?
You know, on a cold night like tonight, people will call for utility assistance and things of that nature. But there are so many services that we provide, from early childhood education, youth development. We have programs for our seniors, for vets, homeless programs. We're trying to get kids into homes so they know where they're laying their heads out each night. All types of housing programs, weatherization, making sure we conserve energy. You name it, financial fitness, anything that would get a person out of poverty, that's what we've tried to put together in terms of a bundle for our families.
How big is the team at Community Action?
We have about 300 employees, and we're in 4 different counties: Harrison, Bourbon, Nicholas, and Fayette County.
So when you do retire, how many ever years down the road, and you can look back and think, I made a difference in my community in Lexington. I reduced the poverty participants. I helped children. How good is that going to make you feel?
It'll feel great just to know that people mention our name and say, when there's any type of need in our community, people will say, go to Community Action. They can help you. They may not have a program, but go there. They're a connection. They're a link. That's what I want us to be. I want people to mention us no matter what happens, that Community Action can help you. Community Action Council can.
Malcolm, as we wrap up, 50-year-old organization, I think you're only the 4th executive director? 4th executive director. So that says a lot about you, that they probably did a big-time search.
They did.
And sometimes the answer's right under their nose.
Yes.
And they found a good one in you.
I appreciate that.
Have a great holiday. One more time, give the phone number, and then we'll wrap it up.
Our phone number is 859-233-4600, and just call us, and we can try to make sure we do what we can to get folks out of poverty.
I love your energy. Thank you for the book. I don't think it's signed yet by Malcolm Ratchford,
not signed yet,
but we'll take care of that. Thanks for coming in, Malcolm.
Thank you guys for having me.
I appreciate you. Thank you. Get on the phone, make a difference in your community. Call Community Action. They do great work. I'm Paul Chartier. Have a great new year.